Good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I'm an alcoholic. And as Phil said, I am from Gray, Maine, which, if anybody is familiar with Maine, is just not too far outside of Portland, Maine. And if you're not familiar with Maine at all, we're about an hour and a half north of Boston. So that's usually a reference point that most folks from around the country can grab onto. I have gone places though, and folks have thought that Maine was actually part of Canada. That's not true. I'm here to say that that's not true. We are about as high up as you could possibly get, but not quite Canada. Thank you, Phil, for the introduction, for the invitation to come and participate here. I feel like that was, and it was based on what you just said, that was a couple of months ago when we first got connected. And this day came very fast, as a matter of fact. Feels like 2 months has gone by at as a clip, and it seems to be the case with this year in general, with all that's kind of gone on and not gone on with all the changes that we've seen in the wake of COVID and all of the one of the fringe benefits of that, I suppose, is that we've had a lot of opportunities, specific Alcoholics Anonymous, to be connected in environments like this with folks that maybe we would have never met otherwise. A pretty interesting stretch. Before I get into telling my story, I feel like I have to do a good job now, Phil, based on what you just said. So I'm going to do my best to carry that torch, carry that message the way that I see fit. And then, before I do, my sobriety date is September 3rd, 2006. And I do have a home group. I have a sponsor, and I do sponsor other people. And there's a lot of other things that go into that as well. And I'll hopefully talk about some of those this evening. What I find most effective when I have the opportunity to participate in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, really in any capacity, is to do my best to surrender myself to God before I have the opportunity to do so, and to really just hope that he uses me however he needs to for the audience that I'm in front of. I've never given the same talk twice. I'm not one that if you listen to a talk from 3 years ago, you're going to get the same talk. Even if it was a couple of weeks ago, you're not going to get the same talk, because I just don't have the same story. I really just do my best to be honest. Something that was extremely attractive to me when I first came into Alcoholics Anonymous is, in hindsight, what I've since understood to be what people call the language of the heart, right? And for me, I can connect with that. I can feel that, right? When someone's talking to me honestly and vulnerably and transparently about themselves, I can absolutely feel that. The God in them connects with the God in me. And that is ultimately my goal. I don't ever want to be someone that is perceived to be as, I'm here to kind of lay it all down and I know better than most and blah, blah, blah. I love to say that one of my greatest qualifications to be here with you this evening is that I destroyed my life so incredibly badly, left to my own devices, that I was given no choice but to choose a different way with a power greater than myself in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, to be able to live a different life, right? I failed miserably. That's how I was qualified to be here, which I think is pretty upside down, as it is most of the time in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Everything seems to be an oxymoron. We surrender to win. That's without a doubt true for me as well, right? I surrender to win. And winning looks very different, right? Because for me, as a self-centered, bliss-craving alcoholic, that ultimately what I want is to feel amazing all the time. And when I didn't get that in sobriety, and I'm not saying that I haven't felt a million times better than I did when I was in the grips of active alcoholism, but come to find out, you actually still have to experience life with or without a drink in your hand, right? And just become the saving grace for my life, for my family, for my really just teaching me how to live, right? Because I definitely was not one that put the drink down and all of a sudden my life got better. To be quite honest, if that were the case, I wouldn't even need to be here tonight, right? I'd probably be off not drinking, having a pretty good Saturday evening. But that's not the case for me. I'm one that when I put the drink down, my life seemed to get a whole lot worse. Not initially, because just having the booze away really removed me from some of the most chaotic and crazy and harmful and hurtful scenarios that I was involved in and that were affecting people around me. But once the dust settled and I realized that essentially what was going on is that I was in a place where now that the booze has been completely moved out of my body, I'm left to grapple with untreated alcoholism in a sense. I didn't realize that I was treating my alcoholism with ethyl alcohol for so many years, right? I thought that I drank my way into alcoholism. At a certain point, I thought my alcoholism lived in the bottle. That is not my experience. And I'm not trying to contest or debate or offend anyone that feels differently, right? For me, you can replace alcohol for me with many, many different things. Alcohol was always my number one love affair. It was always what worked best. It was always what allowed me to, if I didn't have the ability to physically run from what it was that was in front of me or what it was that I was dealing with, I could drink alcohol and I could disappear right in front of your eyes, right? And that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be gone. I wanted to be anywhere but here. And as far back as I can track that, that's the way that it felt for me. As far back as I have memories, right? It almost felt like there was just always this piece of me that was longing for more, that was longing for distraction, that was longing for something better, something different, something to look forward to. And again, I can trace that back to my childhood, right? And the one of the best ways that, just based on my own experience, that I found to describe what it felt like to live with untreated alcoholism my whole life before I found alcohol, essentially, was the feeling that a young child would get on, and this year isn't the best year to say that by any stretch because of all that's going on, but I remember very clearly when I was a child at the end of summer and you knew that you were heading back to school, right? Like the party's over, the gig is up, the game is done, back to suffering. It's just going to be horrible, blah, blah, blah. That's how I felt every single day of my life, right? Like every single day of my life living with alcoholism, I always felt like, oh, I'm just dreading what's to come next, right? Always either living in yesterday or tomorrow, never having the capacity to be in the present moment. And come to find out, that's the present moment is the was probably a big part of why I was never looking to hang out there much, right? I can live in the wreckage of the future. I can live in the wreckage of the past. I can always do that in a way that makes me feel like I have some sort of ability to create security. And that's usually what I'm doing, right? And that's just my experience. If I'm looking ahead, if I'm worried about tomorrow, if I'm looking down the road, I'm looking to try to manufacture a level of security that I can feel good about. And I know for a fact that that's just so far above my pay grade at this point in time. Only God can provide that level of security for me. And without that, I've got nothing to stand on. I don't have a leg to stand on because I don't know about anyone else, but I've yet to find the crystal ball that gives me the blueprint for what's coming tomorrow, right? And I think for most of us as alcoholics, that lack of a blueprint drives us utterly insane. I'll trust you, God. Just give me a peek around the curtain, right? Don't make me trust you blindly. Just give me some proof, right? Have this, and for a long time, I've grappled with this kind of conditional relationship with a God of my understanding, almost like a Santa Claus God, right? Like if I ask for it, you better deliver, and if you don't, well, you clearly don't exist because I asked for it, right? I don't have a Santa Claus God today, for a lack of a better way to put it, because to be quite honest, most of what I've asked for from God throughout the course of my life, God knew better than to give it to me, right? Had I got most of what I'd asked for, I wouldn't be here with you all tonight. Because what I usually want, again, is a nonstop flow of comfort, bliss, distraction, pleasure, no pain, no discomfort, blah, I basically want to be anesthetized here on earth, with or without a drink in my hand, right? To live in the present moment, to have uncomfortable conversations, to have to be an adult, right? Whatever that means, That's very difficult. I don't care how many years the body I've been walking around in on earth has on it. I know so many folks that, just because their bodies have been around for decades doesn't mean they're not still children. Right. And that's definitely been my experience in a lot of ways. I've got alcoholism in a way that I know no better way to describe it than, it hurt my body for sure. It hurt my soul. It really hurt my soul, right? We always talk about the body and the mind, but for me, the alcoholism that I grapple with, it really, really just cut to the core of my being. Call it your heart, call it your soul, call it whatever you'd like to feel it. What I'm describing is that when the dust settles, when the substance wore off, when the people went away, when it was just me with my thoughts in the wake of all that I've done and all that I have done, the aching that I felt in the core of my being, as deep as I can describe it as my soul, that's what my alcoholism felt like day in and day out, right? There's no way to describe the level of suffering and pain that happens internally unless you have in fact walked that road and felt it, right? And I think that's why we have the opportunity to love other alcoholics in a way that no one else can, and at the same time help other alcoholics in a way that no one else can. It says right in our book that we can usually win the confidence of another alcoholic within a matter of hours, right? Where I could spend decades on a couch talking to a therapist, and I may never actually create a bond like that. Not to say that that's not helpful in its proper place, right? But what I'm saying is that to know someone has walked the road, that has suffered the way that you've suffered, we have just such an amazing gift here in Alcoholics Anonymous to be able to help other people like no one else can. And we're all uniquely qualified to do so. Not everyone is the same, right? Not everyone has the same experience. Not everyone has the same background. Not everybody has the same presentation, right? Like I was on a meeting not long ago, and I heard someone say, which I get a kick out of a one-liner every now and then, and he said something like there's a screw for every nut or something like that, which, I mean, I get it. I get what that means. And it's true, right? Like there is, because, God gave me my experience to help other people that either did or struggle with things that I do currently, right? Like, by no mistake, every single man that I sponsor today has my mother, right? I don't know what that's about. But what I know is that God gives us unique experience and will make maximum use of it to others, right? So the relationship that I have with my mother, every single man that I sponsor, they have that same struggle. And their father is the same way, and their siblings, it's eerie at times when we actually submit to the power of God and say, I'm here, boss. I'm willing to do whatever you need me to do. Just show me the way, right? But if I'm so jammed up in my alcoholism that I'm not available to receive that direction or to receive those paths that God so lovingly lays out in front of me, I'll miss it. I'll miss it because I do have free will. We all do. And I have the ability on any given day to completely derail myself from what God would have me be. And I know how those days go. And I know how badly I struggle. So before I go too far down the road, I told you a little bit about what, alcoholism manifesting inside of me feels like. And I'd like to talk just a little bit more about that, because I think it's always important in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous that we qualify, like we say, right? And one interesting thing, I think a lot of it was like what happened and what it's like now. But if you actually read it specifically, it says what we were like, what happened, and what we are like now. So what I am like now, what I was like then, not it, right? Me. So that's what I'm here to do, to have the opportunity to share as transparently and as honestly as God would see fit for me to be putting it on the table with, it looks like about 175 folks that I've never met, which is, I love the vulnerability that I have the opportunity to experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. But there's a whole nother side of me that absolutely despises the vulnerability that I have the opportunity to exercise in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Who wants to get in front of a group of strangers and talk about all of the most vulnerable parts of their lives. And I know today that anytime that I'm willing to share something that I may otherwise deem, ooh, boy, that's embarrassing, or that's something I don't quite want to put on the table, God will always protect me in that, right? And I'm always willing to share my own shortcomings if it will help someone else. Because I have connected with more individuals in Alcoholics Anonymous through shortcomings than through expertise, if that makes sense to folks, right? Like if you've already got it all figured out, I don't have much to talk with you about, right? That's not my experience with alcoholism. Every single morning that I wake up, I am convicted that I wake up with untreated alcoholism, right? Granted, I've had some time between my last drink and now, but every single morning I wake up in a body that's hardwired with a brain that would rather have me isolated or dead on any given day. My alcoholism lives on because it doesn't live in a bottle, right? It lives inside of me. It lives inside of my soul. It lives inside of my mind. And as our book goes into wonderful detail, chapter on chapter, talking about the fact that this manifests in our mind, right? Without the challenges of the mind, we would never find ourselves on the cycle of that physical compulsion to ingest ethyl alcohol. That's where we get. But boy, does my alcoholism ever live in me still. And it's not to say that I haven't recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body as it relates to alcohol, because I have. Without a doubt, that is one thing that God has removed from me, root and branch. I have not ingested a mind-altering substance in over 14 years at this point. And that to me in itself is just mind-boggling. I couldn't imagine. When I first got into Alcoholics Anonymous, I had never gone, a year, give me a break. Like I'd maybe gone a couple of days without ingesting something, right? And if I wasn't ingesting alcohol, I was ingesting something else that would make me feel drunk in the absence of alcohol, right? And I think most of you will know what I'm saying by that, right? And I can treat my alcoholism still today with many things other than alcohol. We've got prestige, we've got power, we've got sex conduct, we've got money, we've got gambling, we've got, work. We've got, boy, give me something to latch onto. And the way that I perceive that stuff is anything that becomes a God substitute for me, anything that I'm latching onto to try to feel whole other than God, that will ultimately, and sometimes it does need to run its course, but that will ultimately equate to me trying to stay, to have a properly nourished body, trying to eat only spoonfuls of sugar for a diet, period. Just all I'm going to eat is just mouthfuls of sugar and expect that I'm going to be healthy and have energy and blah, 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 right? I do my best to use metaphors and pictures just because they work so well for me. Hopefully that works for you folks as well. I like to be able to picture things, right? If I'm just eating a pixie stick diet, the candy that was basically just tubes full of sugar, if I'm calling that a well-balanced meal, how do you think I'm going to feel at the end of a couple of days, right? And that is what happens. How do you think I'm going to feel at the end of a couple of days, removed from God, removed from my program, removed from the disciplines that I need and crave to be a productive member on earth here? I'm going to feel exhausted. I'm going to feel depleted. I'm going to feel useless, right? It doesn't take long. I don't need to unplug myself from the things that keep me alive for very long before my alcoholism is wrapped right around my neck again like a lion, right? And I love that in the bedevilments on page 52, when I go back through the step work annually, which is what I've done for years since I've been with my current sponsor. And it's not so that I can get my next level up in black belt of AA or whatever the case may be, right? By any stretch. It's so that I can get current about what's really going on in my life. And my first step today, I will revisit that we were powerless over alcohol, but that our lives had become unmanageable. That to me looks very different every single year that I look at it based on an examination of self, right? Because my life is no longer unmanageable because of alcohol like it was when I first came in here. It's unmanageable because of selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, fear. So when I go back through that process, I have the opportunity to look at the second half of the first step, completely removed from alcohol, stone cold sober, eyes wide open, and walking through the bedevilments that are on page 52. That's not by any means an all-inclusive list, but it's a really good litmus test for me to reflect on each one of those and say, is that happening in my life? Is it happening in my life? Right? Am I having trouble with personal relationships? Right? Am I a prey to misery and depression? Couldn't control my emotional natures, had a hard time making a living. It's just chock full of that one little concentrated paragraph. And I won't read them all because that was the reason I got here in the first place, is because I was referring to that line around my neck. And when it says we were prey to misery and depression in those bedevilments, right? Prey, what that says to me, the picture that I see is the lion and the gazelle, right? Or prey. That lion is stalking that gazelle from the tall grass, and the gazelle doesn't even know it's there until it's wrapped around its neck, right? And that's what happens to me with my alcoholism at times. If I'm not aware and I don't see that in the tall grass, boy, the next thing you know, it's just wrapped around me like a, it's like the vulture at the end of the bed every morning. I don't know where that comes from, right? So do I have the luxury of being able to press cruise control on my program? Do I have the luxury on being able to press cruise control on being in contact with my sponsor? I don't. Some people may. And at this point in my life and at this point in my recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous, I spent a good number of years being really critical and upset about how people weren't doing it right. And I can promise you that the poison that I was ingesting through that process almost killed me. Right? I have no business or desire to judge what anyone is doing, but at the end of the day, I know for sure what is going to work to keep me alive and well and useful today. And I can't, it's not a half measures deal for me, right? The cost of my life is my life. And every single day I have the opportunity to surrender that life to God and to do what he would have me do and to be what he would have me be, or I can go down Nate's road. Right? I can jump out of bed without praying or meditating. I can just hit the ground running and say, I got a lot of stuff going on today. I got to get it done. And it's almost, I don't know about any other folks that are here, but my alcoholic mind will trick me into thinking that if I just achieve some sort of validation in this area or that area or that area, that if I achieve my, I get to knock off my punch list, right? I get everything done at work that I wanted to get done. Then I'll feel whole. Then I'll feel okay. And then I'll circle back with you, God. Once I get myself to a place that I feel good, then I'll circle back with you, God. And that's not a sustainable model for me. It's just not. Money, right? The pursuit of money. Once I get enough money, then I'll be okay, right? Then I'll be okay. And my sponsor always jokes, how much is enough money? Well, the answer is just enough to not trust God, of course, right? Because if I can rely on money, why rely on God, right? If I can rely on anything, why rely on God? And this may seem a bit radical. I'm not under any delusion that what I'm saying may not seem a bit radical, but what I believe at this point in time, having grappled with the disease of alcoholism outside of a bottle for so many years, that the radical problem that I have requires a very radical solution, right? Very radical solution. And that's the way that I do my best to live my life today. And it's not all gloom and doom, and it's not all suffering, and it's not all hurt, right? But boy, there are times where things can be hard. Life can be difficult. Just because I don't drink doesn't mean I'm always going to be the greatest person, right? And, unfortunately, I'm married to a woman that is also in the program, and we've been married for 8 years, and we have really walked through some stuff. We have walked through some really, really tough times, and we've continued to both stay dedicated to working our programs and loving God more than we love each other, right? And that may sound a bit taboo, but I don't know how to love anyone if it doesn't start with me, right? If it doesn't start with me, if it doesn't start with God, because I just can't give it away, right? I can't give away love if I'm not experiencing it with myself. I can't give away mercy if I'm not being merciful with myself. It's very interesting how that works for me. And, there have been times where I have been, boy, just not the model person, because what I've found is that sometimes Alcoholics Anonymous is the easiest part of what I have to do today, right? I can go to an AA meeting and just sound great and be helping a million people. And then I go home and I'm just sideways, right? Like what if I empty my tank out in so many other places that I have nothing left to bring to my family, right? To my work, to the people that love me. That to me is not okay, right? And there have been some real trials and tribulations around that stuff with me throughout the course of my recovery. And I haven't always done it perfect by no stretch, and when it says in the book that we are not saints, that's not a get out of jail free card for bad behavior, right? What it says is that we're striving to be that way. And that's absolutely what I want for myself. I always want to be striving in the right direction. I don't ever want to be making excuses like, oh, I'm alcoholic. I'm allowed to be just a raging lunatic with you every single day because I'm alcoholic. I'm broken, right? That to me is not an excuse, because crazy people don't know that they're crazy, right? That's what I've been told anyway, and I'm sticking to it for the sake of my point, because I know that I'm crazy today, right? And I'm sure that most of you had grappled with alcoholism the way that I'm talking about it. There are times where I know for sure that I am off the rails. I know that I'm crazy. Thank God for that. But there are also scarier times where I am so far off in the tall grass that I don't even know I'm off the path, right? And that's why it's so terrifying to me that I work my program as if my life depends on it every single day, right? I talk with my sponsor often. I talk with him at least once a week. We do an active 10-step, and what that looks like is that I'm calling him immediately, as the book says, to discuss where I've been resentful, selfish, dishonest, and afraid. What does that look like? And how do I get honest about it with another man? Because for a long time, I tried to shortchange that 10-step to be, well, I'm just going to bring this stuff straight to God. No need to put a middleman in there. I can just go straight to the source. And what I can say is that, so my alcoholic ego will go to great lengths to protect me from embarrassment, right? And a lot of the time, that's exactly what I had to do with. And I can say that the transparency that's required of me to share what I'm experiencing with another human being, with another man, with my sponsor, it absolutely creates a shift in me that I'm not able to create on my own, right? God sends helicopters. I'm not sponsor dependent, but you better believe that I know for sure God sent my sponsor to me to help me in those times, right? My sponsor helps me get reconnected with God, helps put me back on the track, helps point out if I am in one of those places where I don't realize that I am off in the tall grass. You're in the tall grass, Nate. What's going on? Are you done working the program? I've got a sponsor that I love more than anything on this earth, but there have been many times where the things he said to me have made my blood boil, right? And he's never once been critical or condescending or sarcastic or abusive, right? And I say that because there are relationships in Alcoholics Anonymous that are like that. And it's not okay and it's not healthy, right? We're not here to beat each other up and to wear each other down and to talk down to each other. We're here to help each other. We're here to love each other, right? And I'm not being judgmental or critical, but I've been in some relationships that felt like that, and I'm not looking at something saying, oh, I think I've seen that. I'm talking from my own experience, right? I've had sponsors that have absolutely not been what I experience today in sponsorship. And thank God that I have the inspiration to create a shift, to move in a different direction, right? Because if sponsorship is no longer working, well, who's it hurting at the end of the day, right? It's me. And there were times where I would hang out and, well, God, I don't want to hurt his feelings. He's a good guy, whatever, right? It's not to say that things can't shift. And again, Where am I going with that? No idea. I'm actually going to try to get back on track with the story. But um, so my alcoholism shows up in ways that I just would never expect it oftentimes, right? So it's so important that I stay, some of the most important words in my life today, and I'm going to say them out loud because I think they'll make everyone else's hair stand up on the back of their neck the same way they do mine when my alcoholic ego hears these things. But uh, discipline, responsibility, vulnerability, transparency. Ugh, right? I could probably list a couple more, but let's just leave it at that, right? Like how how much am I looking forward to living in those words on a daily basis left to my own devices? Not much, right? I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to be transparent. Discipline, ugh, that's for the fanatics, right? I don't need to be disciplined. Fact of the matter is that I've learned through my own process, through my own self-exploration, through my own inventories, I actually crave discipline, right? I actually crave discipline. What? I resisted, I revolted, I pushed back on that as hard as I possibly could for so many years. Come to find out I actually crave it, right? And when we're talking about in 86 to 88, when it says that we're willing to let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined, for a long time, that kind of made me bristle, right? Discipline, ugh, that seems a bit drastic, right? Meanwhile, when I'm in that place, I'm completely off the grid because I'm not living as though I'm living with a life-threatening illness every single day, right? If I think I can cut corners and take the easier, softer way, well, enjoy it, right? Because you can judge a tree by the fruit it bears, right? A good tree will bear good fruit, bad tree will bear bad fruit. And I say that all the time. I'm not one that's looking to prevent the men that I sponsor from experiencing this stuff firsthand. Because I don't know about any of you, but no one's ever said to me, hey, there's a real lot of chaos about 20 miles ahead. You should turn around and go in a different direction. And I've said, oh, geez, well, if there's trouble ahead, I should probably turn around and go in a different direction. I think the trouble will be gone by the time I get there, or I'll get around it. I'm crafty, right? I don't change because someone warns me. I need to usually go through it myself, drag along the bottom, be pressed up against a brick wall, and only then will I be willing to consider a different way, right? It's just hardwired in me. I don't know why that is, how that is, but I know 100% that it's attributed to my alcoholism, because if it's not, I don't know what else to call it, right? All I've got is alcoholism. I don't have anything else. I remember I used to listen to a lot of speaker tapes when I first got sober, and there was this guy who was saying in general, like he was, kind of addressing the newcomer population in the room, and kind of said that, if you don't have alcoholism, based on all the things that we're talking about right here, right now, if you don't have alcoholism, you might as well just catch it, because boy, if you don't have alcoholism, what is wrong with you? Right? And boy, is that ever true, right? I'm so fortunate that I have alcoholism, because when I first got here, boy, I did not know what was wrong with me, right? I mean, I knew that I had a problem with drugs and with alcohol and with, everything that I could get my hands on, but boy, I had no idea the depths to which this alcoholism had manifested in every single fiber of my being. I thought that I thought that I belonged more in a psych unit than in a detox kind of a thing. Like I just didn't think that I thought I was way more broken than I actually turned out to be, just because of how broken I actually was, right? And when most of us come in here, that's exactly how we feel: fractured, shattered. Who am I? Who have I been? Just riddled with guilt and shame and remorse. And the proposition of having to do something different, to look at the things that I've done to be able to move forward, it just seems so overwhelming, right? And that's kind of what happened for me. I mean, I drank and drank and drank until the booze just stopped working, right? That desolate guilt, shame, and remorse that I was describing to you, that would often come up in my quiet or my sober moments, I couldn't outrun that stuff even with booze in my system anymore. I just felt constantly For really what I felt, if I'm being honest, which that's what I'm here to do, every single day I felt, am I gonna fight another day and try to get through this day, or am I just gonna kill myself? You know, I'm not saying that to be morbid. I'm just saying that's where this disease took me at the end of my drinking. I don't know that I can live another day. I don't know that I can live another day with alcohol. I don't know if I can live a day without alcohol. Where do I go from here? And that's referred to as the jumping off place in the book, right? You can't manufacture desperation for anyone. And that's some of the most heartbreaking reality for those of us that have been in here and have seen people and wanted people to change and have the experience we know is possible in Alcoholics Anonymous and in this program. But we absolutely cannot manufacture desperation for another individual. Just can't do it. And that was the case for me. That's the case for all of us. So, when I finally did get sober, it was just like, as I said, I was like a raw nerve. I was like a raw nerve. I didn't know what was up, what was down. I didn't even know. I felt like I had just been hatched on earth, right? Like, who am I? What do I even wear for clothes? How do I interact with people? I couldn't go to the grocery store early on without having like a panic attack, just trying to buy some bread, that kind of a thing, right? Like, how do I even talk with people? I don't, do they know that I'm as messed up as I am? Can they see it on me? Am I sweating? Am I twitching? Like, I just was constantly paranoid because of how uncomfortable I was in my own skin, right? And that's ultimately what it came down to. I was so uncomfortable in my own skin that, boy, it was going to take something drastic to bring me to another end of that. And, 50 minutes or an hour or whatever, it's just such a short amount of time to try to talk about all of what I was like, all of what happened to me, and all of what I'm like now. But I'll always and will do my best to really just get to the pieces that are coming through as inspiration. So as I said, today I work a program that involves going back through the work annually, vigilant and active 10-step with my sponsor, active sponsorship at a baseline, right? I've had sponsors in the past where I haven't talked to them in 3 months and I'm claiming that I have a sponsor. And when I got my now sponsor, he actually, that came up. When's the last time you talked with the person or your sponsor right now? I said, I don't know. It's probably, again, the fact that I couldn't even remember when, that's a problem, right? Because if you have what I have and it's manifesting inside of your brain on a daily basis, there isn't a single day, and this is just my experience, there isn't a single day that transpires in my life where I don't experience resentment, selfishness, dishonesty, or fear, or all of them multiple times. I've never experienced a day where I don't have that going on. So suffice it to say, if I'm not having conversations with other like-minded individuals to walk through that and to 10-step that, not only so that I can just say it, but so that I can go back to God with the truth that I find in a willing spirit to beg God to remove those things, to help me to be different, right? Help me to turn my thoughts outward to someone I can help and be rid of the bondage and the baggage that I'm carrying around. Right. So I didn't have a sponsor is basically what he said, right? He said, if you don't remember the last time you talked to your sponsor, do you even have one? Boy, I was offended, right? Like, who are you to judge me? And I'm the one calling him for help, mind you, right? So I have a real knack for looking down on other people from a ditch, right? I'm totally out of good ideas, broken, battered, embarrassed. I'll still look down on you. Right? Or I'll still feel offended. Like, don't you know who I am? How could you say that to me? I'm like the lead guy in my home group. People love me. I get asked to talk all the time. Whatever the case may be, whatever the ego is saying, it's all garbage, right? Because if I'm not in a place to experience humility, to be able to tell someone that regardless of what I think I am or what I think I should be in Alcoholics Anonymous, if I'm dying on the inside, it's only a matter of time before I die for good, right? Because there's no way to outrun that. There's no way to outrun that. I was sponsoring dozens of people. I was I was running meetings. I was starting meetings. I was busy, busy, busy with all things AA. Yet I was so blinded by the execution and the process and the education of it all that I never actually had my own personal internal shift experience with the work that's on the pages, right? I thought I was doing everything right. I couldn't possibly fathom how I could feel like I'm dying in the halls of Alcoholics Anonymous, being the pillar of this community that I am, is how my ego saw it, right? But that happened to me. That happened to me. And everything that I knew and everything that I took comfort in and all the facades that I wrapped around myself to make me feel safe, to make me feel whole, to make me feel comfortable, started to just dissolve and disappear. And I was given no choice but to go inward, right? And this was years in. I'm not talking like a couple of years. I mean, I was years into this. And this is what's happening to me. And I'm realizing it for the first time. I've never actually done this. I've never actually experienced this internally. It's always been about educate, 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 execute, execute. Oh, you want a tip and trick of how to write the most perfect inventory you could ever write? I'm your guy. That stuff is going to get me nowhere, right? I'm not to say it's not important, right? The Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is the textbook for what we do. We should all know it, right? Because that is where our instructions lie. But if they remain in the book and don't get transferred inward to our being, I will never have a spiritual experience that will make me different, right? I don't work the program today for relief. I work it for transformation. And there's a difference, right? I work the program for relief for a long time. I want to be different. I want to be a different man. Every time that I exercise this program, that's the promise that's always been made available to me. If you go into this with your heart and soul, you will be transformed. You will not be the same man on the other end of it. That's always held up. That's always shown up for me, right? And it's not always like, oh, geez, great, I feel fantastic, and I'll just never experience any turmoil or tribulations or hardships or struggles. No, that's not the case at all, right? When I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, living the way that I had lived and being anesthetized and constantly just pursuing my love affair with alcohol. And that's what, was really brought to my attention, that it would be important for me to examine in a first step experience what my love affair with alcohol actually looked like, right? What was my relationship with alcohol? Not just that I drank, what did it look like? Did I get arrested? Blah, 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 all the war stories. But what did my intimate relationship with that substance actually look like? And boy, that was a jarring experience for me the first time, because the way that I pursued alcohol on earth was like I was in the most abusive relationship that you could ever be in, and it was always going to be different next time. But boy, I love that more than anything else on this earth, and I will give up everything and anything that I've ever cared about to stay close to it, right? Whew. Just took the breath right out of my lungs. And I still go back through that experience every single year when I walk through the step work with my sponsor to relive that relationship, right? What did that actually look like when it was fully functioning and alive? And it's terrifying because it absolutely dominated anything and everything else that I would have ever said mattered. I would always choose alcohol, always. And I wouldn't say it that outright. I'd be much more manipulative about it, or I wouldn't say it at all. But in my head, it's, no, I can't live without that. No way, right? So, yeah, it's just unbelievable the things that transpire when we open ourselves to be willing to receive them, right? Because again, I could come into a meeting like this and just try to educate you on the 12-step experience and where to find this in the book and that and the other thing. And I do that with people if that's the venue, right? But I've found so much more value to just sharing honestly and openly and transparently about what this has looked like for me, right? And it may not look like this, what I'm describing for everyone, and that would be ridiculous to expect that it would, right? But without a doubt, I think that when we have the opportunity to allow the God in us to connect with the God in other people, that's where the magic happens in this program, right? And being able to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to tell you about all the success and the great things I've had going on. I want to tell you about where I've continued to fall short, right? Where I've continued to struggle, where I've continued to not be completely free of the disease of alcoholism like I once thought I would be, right? And I'm not saying that I'm every single day I'm like hanging on by a thread. I might drink. That's not even close to it, right? I have been restored from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body as it relates to alcohol. It's just baffling to me when I hear, and again, this is not to be critical. This is just me reflecting on it. To say that I didn't drink today, but every other area of my life was a heaping pile of you know what. To say that I didn't drink today and I'm a winner because of that, that is so shortchanging not only the power of God, the power of this program, it's what this is all about, right? Because if we're not here to be different, what are we here for? I need to be different. I need to be a different man, and I need to be a different man today, right? I don't do well with change, right? Just for instance, if you want to change the plan on me, I don't react very gracefully at times, right? I have this desire to manufacture security and happiness at all times. That's how my alcoholism continues to show up in my life on a daily basis. And when I'm looking for my selfishness in scenarios, I'm often looking at it through that lens as directed by my sponsor. How are you trying to keep yourself safe? How are you trying to keep yourself happy, removed from God, right? What are you trying to do? Oh, I'm trying to make sure that the situation goes the way I need it to, right? And I just experienced that in my house today, right? And I don't have a ton of time to go into the full story, but I had a very specific expectation of the way that the day was going to go. Me and my wife both had different things we had to attend to. Wouldn't you have it? It didn't go the way I thought it would. And I wish that I could sit here and say that I was just, let me sit down and breathe and really bring God into the forefront so that I can be the best man that I can be today. I don't always do that, right? But it's not an excuse to stop trying. And I want to be a better man, right? My wife and I, both being in the program, we used to have, when our alcoholism would both come out at the same time, boy, I wouldn't want to be within a cubic mile of the house we were in, kind of a thing, right? And we've grown a lot. And we've actually, we've instituted a lot we've both been pursuing this path. We both work the program and we have ideals. We have ideals, not just sex ideals. We have ideals for our family, for our parenting, for a lot of things, right? And we've come together to form those things out and to help us to be the best people that we can be. And our fights don't last that long, right? And they're not even really fights. A lot of the time they're just like, I was really just leaning on you to be God. No wonder you fell short, right? I wanted you to be my God. I wanted you to make me feel safe. I wanted you to make me feel important, whatever the case may be, right? Because left to my own devices, if I'm not pursuing God as though my life depends on it, as though I'm in full flight from a life-threatening illness, I will latch on to anything and everything like a leech to try to fill in that gap that still lives inside of me, removed from God, right? And it's never good for me or anyone when I'm trying to fill that void with anything but God. And it looks pretty chaotic and pretty embarrassing when the dust finally settles for me, Because, I don't know about you, but have you ever realized, halfway through an argument that you are 100% dead to rights wrong and you just keep pursuing it as if you're not because you're so embarrassed to back down at that point? My goodness, this is, if I could sum up alcoholism in one word, and I could sum it up with a few, but I would say embarrassing, right? That's how alcoholism manifests today. Embarrassing. So it's been a pleasure to be here with you. I know I'm right on the button here, and I've really just appreciated the opportunity to be vulnerable and to share honestly with you folks. And there is absolutely unbelievable opportunity for submission and transformation and discipline that we actually crave, right? So thank you.